I'm white, and I've got everything I need. No one clutches their purses when they're in a room alone with me. And I can drive for any neighborhood I please at any hour, and the police don't do a thing. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got everything I need. I'm a guy getting paid more than a girl with a degree. And I can walk down the streets after dark, no one wants to rape me. And I can get a girl pregnant and just as easily flee, just like my straight white male dad did to me. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. I've got a pile of broken mirrors and I'm walking under ladders and I'm spilling tons of salt, but to me that doesn't matter, cause my skin and my gender and my orientation are the best things to have if you live in this nation. I recommend it highly. If I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. Shit's gonna work out for me, cause I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need.
Hey, welcome to the Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do the show live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific right here on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Echoplex Media, simulcasting to other places, but if you're watching over there, you're going to be pretty fucking lonely. You can support this project by going to echoplexmedia.com, click the support link at the top of the homepage, and pick your favorite method. I'm producer Dave, and you can find me on Grindr.
I am HK Parent. You can find me on Mastodon at hparent at port87.social.
And just a quick announcement, the Media Wench is on terrestrial radio up in Shasta County, KCNR. She's doing a show called Shasta Unmasked. That show, she's doing it with a couple gals who are living in Shasta and fighting the good fight up there. And it also is out as a podcast now. It is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you can find it on our website, echoplexmedia.com/Shasta Unmasked. And it takes a while to get all the other podcast apps. They pull it from Apple Podcasts or I have to submit it myself, which is a huge pain in the ass. But we will get it everywhere, and everybody go ahead and go follow that. They have an Instagram for Shasta Unmasked. They also have a Facebook page, and I don't think I'll be able to talk them into getting a Twitter. So, but that's big news. Pretty cool that one of our own is on the actual terrestrial radio where you can't swear, and you can't. I don't know. I guess you can't. I don't know what else you can't. You can't swear, I guess. It's mostly it.
Yeah, there's some other, there's some topics you can't talk about, right?
Right. But anyway, I listened to the first episode. They are using an old radio, call-in system, so the quality ain't that great, but that's just the way it is, because that's an old radio station up there, and it's not like I'm going to go up there and fix all their shit so their show sounds good. So everybody make sure you check that out. It's real interesting. They interviewed a person just yesterday. It'll go out on the podcast feed tomorrow, so you'll be here. Never mind. Time is a flat circle. Don't worry about it. By the time this podcast goes out, it'll be up, and they interviewed somebody who is doing good work against Moms for Liberty up there in Shasta County. So anyway, we're doing other good work here, or I don't know how you describe that. There's this guy, we've watched a few of his videos. His name is Andrew Bustamante. He's running around claiming that he used to be a CIA agent, and I'm having a hard time with this, because if you were once an intelligence operative or you are an intelligence operative, you tend not to tell people that.
But also, that would be a pretty good grift, because no one's gonna confirm or deny it.
Yeah, you contact the CIA, they're like, CI who?
Yeah.
So anyway, this is he's went on to a Constantine and Non Oliver's show. I'm sorry, Constantine. and non-Oliver show to talk about why Israel and Ukraine can't win, apparently. And again, the man claims to have been a CIA agent. And it's been a while since we've done a Triggernometry for the main show content, so I'm sorry, I guess.
Do you know who the lead negotiator is for the United States? CIA Director Burns. That is not a role for a career intelligence official, somebody whose job is to lie and steal and cheat without getting caught.
But wait, what are you claiming to be? Already, hold on. Wait a minute. Sir, you're making a claim that that's who you are as well.
But also, like, his job is to lie and cheat and steal for us, right?
Right.
So he's one of the good guys.
Or to tell the truth when that's advantageous.
Yeah.
They want to have the ability to deploy fucking airplanes and warships into the Middle East, into friendly territory when we fight China. That's what they want.
What?
Zelensky could have reached basically the same outcome, the same best outcome could have been reached within a few weeks. Why do we think that Russia expansion means Russian tanks? Why does that concept come to mind? Because that's the narrative that the West has made.
No, it's because of history. I mean, as a Russian, I can tell you, right? Every time Russia has a strong...
Oh, shit. Fucking liar versus liar, everybody. Let's party.
And very often with war. Andrew, awesome to have you on the show. We were excited about it anyway, but then we started talking while we were waiting, and there's so much we can talk about. Before we get into that, tell us a little bit about your career, particularly CIA and other stuff where you've served abroad and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to be here, guys. This is a conversation I've been looking forward to for a while. But
the right answer is what career? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a diplomat.
Yeah, what is his shirt says everyday spy.
Yeah.
Is that like is that like a brand that I don't know, or is he like claiming that he was a spy on his clothing? I'm confused here.
This is like the worst episode of Burn Notice I've ever seen.
I'm going to assume it's a brand I don't know.
Oh, it's probably his brand.
Oh, that would make sense. Yeah.
Wonder if he's on Fourth Wall.
Oh, God, no.
My name is Andrew Bustamante. I started in rural Pennsylvania, a brown kid in rural Pennsylvania. Ended up going to a military school because it was the best of all the bad options that I had. And then from there, I actually got recruited into CIA, had an awesome experience at CIA, living and working undercover, operating abroad. I met my wife, who was also a CIA officer at the time. And we ultimately ended up leaving CIA 2014, which was 10 years ago, which is kind of mind-boggling, for family reasons. Because, surprise, surprise, CIA is not a family-first organization. And then when we left CIA, we kind of had to start all over.
Pretty sure CIA agents often have families. What?
Well, it depends what you're doing. I mean, this guy's claiming that he was fucking 007 and shit, right? Like,
okay, yeah.
He's not claiming that
So
he's
he's saying
sitting
that
he's not claiming that he's sitting in an office like as an analyst or whatever, which is what the vast majority of intelligence operations is actually. It's just analyzing data. He's not claiming that. He's claiming that he was the fucking A-team and shit.
Yeah, he's saying he was Jason Bourne.
I'm going to go with more Michael West and less Jason Bourne.
You feel like you're special at CIA, but when you leave,
well, Jason
CIA,
Bourne, they killed his. Did they kill it? Yeah, they killed his wife.
Okay,
or his
sure.
girlfriend. I don't know.
That's fantastic.
I don't remember.
References home with you. You don't get to take friends home with you because everybody remains undercover. Everybody remains inside that organism that is undercover operations.
And you say you were recruited. Why and why? What does that look like?
You never get to know exactly why they're interested in you. I have some theories. One, I was recruited in 2007 as part of the tail end of the surge coming out of September 11th. So if you recall, 9/11 happened in the United States in 2001. 2 years later, there was a giant commission that was completed, a big investigation that was completed. And as one of the findings of that investigation was that the CIA of 2001 was not equipped to handle the rising terrorist threat that was coming against the United States. So they had to plus up people, they had to plus up operations, and one of the big things they pushed for was more diversity in their cadre, because prior to 2001, CIA was basically Ivy League white guys. And it's going to be hard to place an Ivy League white guy in any kind of Arab community.
In a cave in Afghanistan, you're probably going to stand out.
Correct. But an ambiguously brown, rural Pennsylvanian kid, right, has a better chance of being completely forgotten. I mean, I was unknown all through high school, so I was really well trained.
That's so interesting. So that was the moment they actually said, look, we need to infiltrate these particular organizations, monitor them, and white guys ain't going to cut it. I mean, you kind of go, all right, in that way, diversity might be a strength.
Yes, and that's what's so...
Well, oh no, did you hear fucking Non-Oliver? He's like, oh, this limited case when you got to look like an Arab, this might be a good time for diversity.
Yeah, holy shit. What are the ways... So, Mr. Non-Oliver, I forget his real name.
Non-Oliver.
What are the ways in which diversity is bad, would you say?
Oh, it's the you know.
We both know what he would say.
Yeah, I mean, he would just say it's diversity hires. But yeah, I mean, like, so this guy, if this guy had infiltrated criminal organizations and shit, he wouldn't be on a fucking popular podcast with his fucking full face right there talking about it, dude, because those people will still kill a motherfucker, right?
Yep. Yeah, but Non-Oliver would bring up like race and IQ or something.
CIA took a very practical approach to diversity, not a legislative.
Francis, that's his name.
To come in and place policies on the importance of having people of color and people of different ages and people of different genders. It was a very practical need. You can't send a male of any skin color to infiltrate a female Muslim society. You can't. You have to have females. Even better if you have females who are also Muslim, who are also Arabic speakers, who are familiar with the region.
Yeah, it's quite well known that there were no female spies before the 2010s.
That's really crazy. This is all really dumb. Okay, first of all, like, what do you mean female Muslim organ? I'm just not buying this guy like on its face, like just on its face, right? Like I'm a former fucking CIA agent who did a bunch of undercover work who's going around talking about it on podcasts. I'm just not buying the premise. But the more he talks about it, the less it makes sense what he's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and what he's saying is bullshit. Like there have been female spies for as long as there have been spies.
Right. They just for the for the tactic of beautiful peopling a male spy, right? Or a straight male spy where you go up to him at the bar and you start hitting on him and he's like, damn, that's a pretty girl. Well, boom. Now he's going to be a little more chatty, isn't he?
Like the term honeypot is not like a new term.
Right. This is, this is so dumb.
Good quality people, but it's hard to find that from an Ivy League university. Sometimes you need to look somewhere else. And even now, CIA is looking at people who don't even have formal degrees. I mean, there's all sorts of opportunity that is pushed at what we call the pace of operations, what's required to keep Americans safe, because that's the priority. That's the priority for CIA is national security primacy.
Andrew, I feel it's really important before we really delve into the conversation. There's people who, of course, are aware of the CIA, but there's people who might not be aware of what exactly the CIA does. And
no, that's their job, is for you to not be aware of exactly what they do, not Oliver, you stupid motherfucker. That's literally their job. Yes, not good job, non-Oliver.
Probably a whole load of conspiracy as well. That's
probably.
Yeah, there's a lot of conspiracy that is molded in with that. So let's just talk about what does the CIA do, and let's explode some myths which people will definitely listen to.
No, that's a very fair point, right? So CIA does what's known as human intelligence, or in our world, HUMINT. Now, intelligence is a very broad, sweeping term, and there's
no. They do signals like they do all of it. They do like signals intelligence. They're like analyzing data. They're like analyzing fucking Twitter posts. Like they're doing what the fuck? They don't just do this is a very fucking James Bond version of this, right?
Yep.
He's like, well, they drink martinis, and I'm like, sir, that's MI6.
Yeah, like I don't believe what he's saying here. Maybe like the CIA really did pay him, and like the CIA is like just gave him all the wrong information and then let him go so that like, he could throw everyone off the trail.
Right. That's the the only way in which he's a CIA operative or a former CIA, the only way in which he is that he's at work right now, as Madison Star Moon used to tell us, right?
Yeah.
They're like, well, these two people are fucking dumb. Go on their show. They'll believe whatever you tell them.
A misinformant. Yeah. Fragwitz, that's a good one.
Active measures. Yeah. He's a decoy.
Inside that, there's measurements intelligence, signals intelligence, imagery intelligence. So there's multiple disciplines inside the intelligence field. One of those disciplines is called human intelligence, which is the process of extracting secrets from a human being rather than from a radio or from a picture or from something else, right? So CIA...
Well, if it's on a picture, it's not a secret. But
the Central Intelligence Agency has two purposes. One is it's the primary human intelligence agency in the United States. But then second, it is also the primary analytical resource that feeds the executive branch, which is really just the executive office or the office of the president. So all the intelligence agencies in the IC intelligence community, all the intelligence agencies feed their raw analysis to CIA, who creates a finished analytical product called the President's Daily Brief that gets briefed to the president every day.
What about the operation side? Because CIA isn't just about gathering intelligence, like CIA takes people out and stuff like that. What about that side of it?
That's where part of the myth is, right? So CIA has a paramilitary element, but it's a very small element, just like it has a cybersecurity element. That's another small element. It has an offensive cyber element, a counterintelligence element. These are all small elements.
I mean, how do you define small?
Focused on human intelligence operations.
I mean, I think he's wrong here too. I mean, not that these are small. I think he's just wrong. Like, he's like, oh, other people are doing signals intelligence. Well, no, the CIA is doing signals intelligence. Like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
But wait a minute, I'm just guessing, because who fucking knows? The CIA's job is for you to not know what they're doing.
Well, the CIA does do signals intelligence, because isn't it the CIA that breaks a lot of these like cybercrime websites?
Yes. Like but the other
like when they
thing
put the thing up that says like CIA and FBI has taken over this.
I think if it's in the US, it usually just says in fact, it just says the FBI, even though the CIA probably did it, because the CIA ostensibly isn't supposed to be doing any work inside the US other than like informing other agencies about things.
Okay.
But that's just what they say, which is probably a lie because of the fucking CIA.
Yep.
Like, this reminds me of, there's this one time that the CIA had put out a commercial, or it was a video, right? They put out a video, an ad for themselves, and the ad was like of a person. She's like, oh, I have anxiety, and, I work for the CIA and this and that. And people were like, look, the CIA has gone woke. And I'm like, you believe the ad that the CIA put out? Like, why do you believe the ad that the CIA put out? Like, what kind of dumb motherfucker are you? That lady may or may not work for the CIA. She could be from instead of the Central Intelligence Agency, she could just be from fucking Central Casting. Who knows?
And
yeah, I would bet she's an actor.
From a terrorist, maybe the best thing to do is just neutralize the terrorist. In those moments...
That's a lovely use of language there, Andrew. I've got to say.
In those moments, you need to have that capability. Right. And CIA, being an office that serves the president directly, it doesn't want to outsource that to, say, DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency. It doesn't want to give that task to the Marine Corps. It wants to be able to do that in-house. So it has what's known as a paramilitary capability.
Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of people in places like where my mom's from in Venezuela, and they'll go, the CIA, they destabilize, da-da-da-da-da.
Can I just say I'm very offended by that accent?
Yeah, that is actually how my mum speaks.
And that is very offensive.
But they say, the CIA destabilized.
Honestly, couldn't tell if he was being serious right there.
Are perceived to be the enemies, or not even enemies, but don't act within the interests of the United States. And then they help to depose them, put in their own regimes, etc., etc. Is that actually true?
There is truth to that, but we have to look at CIA very much as a black and white pre-2001, post-2001 organization. And it's because when the Twin Towers fell on 9/11, there was really one organization to blame, CIA. And CIA takes that squarely on their shoulders. They failed to do what they were supposed to do in conjunction with FBI, and that was the finding of the 9/11 Commission. So you can't have a failure like that on your record and not be forced to completely change. So that's what happened with 9/11. And many people don't realize that when you hear stories of 1990s, 1980s, 1970s CIA, you're talking about an organization that had a few thousand people at most and didn't have any oversight. And those people were largely Ivy League white guys who were part of an old buddy network. Post 2001, even further back after you look past 2003, 2004, when Congress became heavily engaged in overseeing what the CIA did, now you have an organization that has multiple thousands of just undercover officers, and then tens of thousands of officers on top of that, and an organization that.
But how? Well, we would wait. Why would he know that? Like, if you work for the CIA, the part of you only know, like, you listen. It makes sense that you would only know about who you need to know about, and that you wouldn't have like detailed information about how many undercover officers there are, because like then if you get caught, like then you might spill the beans on how many undercover officers there are. Like,
I think maybe he had the all access pass, the CIA all access pass. Like he paid extra for it.
Maybe I just you're right. This is a brilliant grift. Because no matter who
Yep.
you are, they're going to be like, Andrew who?
Yep.
a whole different set of rules and obligations that it has to abide by. Many people say that the pre-2001 CIA was the more effective, more dangerous, more nimble CIA. And the CIA now is so heavily bureaucratized that it's been neutered in many ways. And it just seems to get worse each year.
I feel like this is just his fanfic. Are we just watching a guy go over his CIA fanfic?
But it's fanfic about himself in some ways.
You can write yourself into your own fanfic.
I'm sorry, like, has nobody ever asked this guy, like, why anybody should believe him?
I guess he seeks out credulous people.
And maybe he is a CIA agent.
View of what CIA is capable of, because now that we're so politically divided, it's a organization that was built to support the president. Well, the president switches extremes every 4 years right now, right? And what does that mean for an organization? How does that organization?
Wait a minute, that's not true. The most of the presidents in my lifetime have served 8 years.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yeah, in fact, you'd have to go all the way back to 1992, right? To the last time it switched after 4 years?
yeah, I mean, Biden, but
Well, no, I mean before that.
yeah,
You'd have to go all the way back to 1992.
Yeah, I think everybody else was 2-term. But I mean,
Yep.
he is kind of right that it goes Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican or whatever. But
Yeah.
Success. If you are part of the organization, how do you have any hopes for a career? Now, the idea that CIA does not work in the best interest of the American people, that is also something that people talk about. That is patently false. The CIA only works in the best interest of the American people.
wait, what? But that doesn't make any sense, because you and me, HK, might even have disagreements on what an intelligence agency might do, like in like another country that would be in the interest of the American people. That's a very subjective thing that he's saying as if it's an objective statement.
Yeah, like he's heavily implying that like the CIA is correct in that what they're doing is good for the American people.
Right. Like, you would think that like somebody who had thought about this a little bit more would be like, well, the CIA does what seems to be in the interest of, you know what I'm saying? Like you would caveat it in some kind of way, especially if you were, I don't know, an intelligence operative who kind of knew anything. Like, I bet there's a fucking there has to be disagreement inside the CIA as to what is in the interest of the United States, because they're people. Like, this is, I can't, why does anybody believe this guy? I don't know that he's lying, but why do you believe him? Like, you know,
He speaks with such confidence, like you could even call him a man of confidence, like a confidence man, right?
Yeah, we have
Yeah. Yeah, you can even shorten that. Just call him a con man.
In support of the American people, that it really will do whatever it takes to keep Americans safe, to keep America as the primary superpower, the singular superpower in the world. I mean, we put even the promise of democracy second to making sure that the great American experiment is always the prime superpower.
Let me stress test that a little bit, because it brings us onto territory that I wanted to cover anyway, which is I don't think anyone actually would say that the CIA is not attempting to serve the interests of the American people. I think what people would say is the way that they see the interests of the American people is not necessarily the way some American people see the interests of the American people. And that's where I think...
Holy shit, we agree with Constantine.
Fucking good job, Constantine. Good job. Here, I'll give you your own laugh track as a reward, Constantine. Good job. Good job. Laughs all around. Like, what the fuck, dude? But it's really interesting that he's skeptical of that, but not at all of his guest. Like, it's so weird.
Right?
And one of the things that I think that Francis is trying to raise, and it's interesting to me, and this
Wait, Non Oliver did say something a while back, I suppose.
I'm not imposing anything, is, for example, 9/11. There are people who will say, well, I don't mean this in a moral sense, Americans' chickens coming home to roost, and America deserved it. But when you lay with dogs, you get fleas. So when you support the Taliban and the Mujahideen against the Soviet Union, it's not a surprise that you've got some crazy guys with weapons and money and guns and whatever. To what extent do you think, CIA pursuing short-term objectives without necessarily thinking on a 20-year schedule is where I think some of these issues come in, where it's like it comes back to bite you in the arse, as we say in the UK.
No, and I think you've got
as we say in the UK,
for sure. One of the things that we're, as a collective world, as a collective Western democratic world specifically, one of the things that we're coming to discover now is that democracy has its flaws. And one of those flaws is the cycle of change. So the United States, not the CIA.
We didn't just that's the entire reason that republics exist.
Right. That you can't.
Because democracy has flaws.
Right. So
our country is founded on the notion that democracy has flaws.
Right. That's why you do representative democracy, hoping that the change will reflect the will of the people, but that it will happen a little in a more measured way or whatever. That's the hope.
Yeah, we're not even a democracy. We are a constitutional democratic republic.
Right. And I mean, that's shorthand. I mean, we're referred to as a democracy because it is a type of, your leaders are generally democratically elected, except for the president, and which is a flaw. But
yep.
I mean, because I want to be careful here too, because you get these jackasses online that are like, this isn't a democracy, it's a republic. And I'm like, well, how do we elect the leaders? Some form of voting, right?
Never been able to think further than 6 or 8 years in the future. I mean, even when it comes to federal budgets inside the United States, one of the longest federal budget is about 5 years. Anything after 5 years is what's the point of even planning? So most budgetary cycles are literally year to year. Sometimes you have 2-year money, sometimes you have 3-year money, and in rare occasions, you have 5-year money. That means we can't plan more than 5 years in the future as a federal government, let alone dictate to a sub-agency like CIA.
Just because you can't fund a program for 5 years in the future, which he did say it happens sometimes, but for the sake of argument, we'll take him at his word. You can't fund a program for 5 years into the future. That doesn't mean you can't have the program. You would just have the program and guarantee funding for a couple years and then come back to the funding issue later. That happens all the time. Programs have a set goal and then a certain amount of funding, and then later the goal is updated and their funding is updated. Usually it's cut. But,
right. Unless it's the military.
Yep. Then it's increased.
Right. But yeah, there's tons of stuff that the government is trying to plan 10 and 20 years out. It's just hard. Because it's not that nobody's thinking that far into the future or trying to make plans that will extend that far into the future. It's that they, like you were saying, certain things sunset, certain things need to be revisited, renewed, re-examined, and that's pretty good actually. Because what if shit does change, and then you got to adjust the plan. That's reasonable, but that doesn't mean that there's no plan out past 5 years. That's dumb. Yeah.
No.
And you would think an organization like the CIA especially has to have plans that are out past 5 years.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To your point, all of the American objectives are short-term objectives,
Wow.
right?
That's
All of
scary
them.
to me, man.
The UK is not better off.
No.
That's just wrong.
Because
It's
you
just
guys
so
are-
wrong what he's
you're-
saying.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like that's the wrongest thing he's said so far.
I think the wrongest thing he said so far is that he was a fucking CIA agent.
Well, at least he's only wrong about himself in that one, and he's not wrong about like an entire government.
Oh man, yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think like it's this misunderstanding, the idea that sure, the president's going to be there for max 8 years, so the president can only impact executive policy for 8 years. That doesn't mean that the president and their administration aren't making longer term plans in the hopes that these things come to fruition, or that that Congress isn't making longer term plans, or that state governments aren't making longer term plans. Like, just think of the fucking railroad system. They didn't make it in 3 years. How'd they do that? Huh?
Yeah, and we currently have railroad projects that are set like 15, 20 years into the future to be completed.
It took
Like
900. It took
California's working
900.
on one.
It took 900 years for Bart to go to San Jose. Like, if you remember,
You mean to be built to San Jose or just to get there?
to be built, just so that
Oh, okay.
Prime Minister, the turnover is incredible and unpredictable. That's the person who's leading the country. They're the ones that in many ways dictate who supports them on their staff. How do you do that? And the American people, just like the British citizens in the UK, we're in it for life. I'm not going to ever be not American. I may not live in the United States, but I'm not going to be not American. I'm in it for the next, if I'm lucky, another 40 or 50 years. How can we only be making decisions 2 to 3 years in advance?
No, that's a totally fair point. I've been saying this for a long time. The one advantage authoritarian regimes have is the ability to plan on a 20, 30 years timescale. Now, that has trade-offs, negatives too. But
Correct.
What I'm asking is slightly different though, Andrew, which is the reason I think people sometimes criticize CIA operations or decisions and stuff like that is they go, well, did you not think that when you give these cave-dwelling Islamists...
Whoa, whoa, dude, get the fuck out of here!
Yikes.
Like, before we bombed these places into smithereens, like, some of them were like some of the most like a fucking, like, Baghdad was like a very cosmopolitan, advanced fucking city before we bombed the shit out of it, dude. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, it is difficult to live in a high rise after it's been exploded.
right. Cave dwelling. What the fuck, dude? What is it? How does he think that they like how does he think that these networks organize themselves if they were just all out in the middle of nowhere in a cave in the desert? It's kind of hard to organize out there.
Clearly, they have tin cans and string.
What the fuck, dude? Constantine. Like, the other thing is, like, if this guy was really an intelligence operative, he might say something like, well, there were cities, sir. Cities. There were cities in these places. Like, there still are, but some of them are in a much worse shape because of the U.S. military, but cities, sir. Cities. Has he heard of Dubai?
Yep.
I mean, that's not a nation that we've bombed, but there's time. There's still time. We can always bomb Dubai. We can always bomb the UAE.
I'm sure
right?
we'll get there.
weapons and money and whatever that wouldn't just end in that moment when they defeat the Soviets. It actually will create things down the line, and you're messing with things perhaps that you don't understand well enough in a region that's very old and very complicated, and you're pushing buttons here that will, the results will show. It's like, it's a completely different example, but we were talking about this other day. Like, we've done interviews 5 years ago when we were completely different people. We've changed over time, that people now use against us to criticize us for something, right? I'm talking about that, but on a much bigger scale.
Absolutely. And I would say that criticism is
But
fair.
you've done interviews 5 weeks ago that people would use to criticize you for much the same reason that they'd criticize the interview from 5 years ago. Dude, get the fuck out of here. Like, I don't think they've changed that much. I think they pretend less that they were comedians. And I think that's less of, that's just, they just do that less. That's all. Like this guy's a CIA agent the same way that these two were in the London comedy scene.
You mean he worked a few miles from the CIA?
Right.
You can see it play out in the headlines. But the reality of it is that you don't know what the future holds. There's this concept that we have in CIA called the cone of uncertainty. And the cone of uncertainty is, if you imagine like a party hat, like a birthday hat, those conical hats, and you put
Thanks for explaining to us what a cone is shaped like. Thanks a lot.
A cone, like one of those cone-shaped hats. It's shaped like a cone-shaped hat.
It's a cone.
That's what a cone is shaped like.
What color is orange? Like an orange.
Yeah.
That's what color an orange is.
Like a traffic cone? It's shaped like that. A cone is shaped like a traffic cone. Like an ice cream cone? It's shaped like that.
Also, this chart that he's showing is like the most obvious thing. The further out from the present moment you go into the future, the more variables about anything there are probably going to be, and so the less you can predict what's going to happen. Like this is
but the CIA invented this.
Also, this isn't a cone.
Nobody knew about this before the CIA.
Cones tend to have flat sides, and this is curved.
It's a little droopy, okay? It's a droopy cone. You got to look at it sideways, and then it's just a droopy cone. You don't have to make fun of the CIA for having a droopy cone.
It's more like a horn, maybe. Maybe it's the horn of uncertainty.
Yeah.
with a string that goes through it. The string is the timeline, and then the cone is here at the end.
Oh, okay.
You know exactly what happened in the past. It's a very clear.
Do you?
No, that's not
true.
true.
Exactly what happened in the past? Wow.
Now
that's a statement.
Now I think this guy is an op, but he's currently an op, right?
Yeah. You know exactly what happened in the past. We know everything about the past. 100% guaranteed.
Shit, I don't remember what I had for lunch 2 days ago. What the fuck is this guy talking about?
We have perfect past vision. That's why there's no conspiracy theories.
Right. The hindsight is 2020, but 2020 that doesn't mean you see everything. It means you see pretty well.
Yeah, 2020 vision is not actually the best vision. That's like average vision.
And it's and you can only see what you can see. Right? Just because you have good vision doesn't mean you see everything. Those are two different things. One is good vision, the other would be omniscience.
I think if it was perfect vision, it would be like 20-0, right? Like what the average person.
I don't know what the 20 ratios are, and I don't think that's. I just this guy. This is amazing. Why now? I believe this guy actually. Not that he was an intelligence operative, but that he is an intelligence operative.
Yeah.
And then there's this point where the string enters the conical hat.
Uh-huh.
Right there at that moment, you have high confidence of what the next moment, which is hidden inside the cone, you have high confidence what that's going to look like. But as you start looking further into the future, the cone of uncertainty gets bigger. The string could completely change.
Yeah, that's very not an obvious thing that everyone knows.
Yeah, that's a CIA thing.
Yeah, CIA invented that. No one knew about uncertainty before the CIA.
The CIA had to go teach it to stockbrokers and people who own businesses, HK.
Yeah. Amazingly, though, everyone has always known perfectly what happened in the past. Yeah, okay. So this guy's being very silly, and we're making fun of him a lot for that.
So when CIA or when U.S. policy or when any democracy makes a decision, they're looking at that cone of uncertainty, and they're looking forward 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, 90 days, a year, a presidential campaign cycle. They're trying to find a reasonable period to look forward to so they can assess the likelihood of what the future will look like. But with every year that you have to look forward, the uncertainty gets more and more. So it's
Right, but you're spending a lot of time. He's spending a lot of time explaining this, and that's why I think it's okay that we're spending a lot of time making fun of this.
Yeah, it's like such an obvious concept. Like really, he could have explained this in like 10 seconds.
Right, as it gets further into the future.
Further out you go in time, harder it is to predict stuff.
There you go.
There you go.
Boom. Now you can be a CIA agent.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's pretty. This is why I think he might be an op, is because he's trying to they're trying to tell these two dumb fucks that this is a complicated concept, and then because they're dumb fucks, they believe him that this is complicated. Oh my god!
Game of diminishing returns to start what ifing. Well, what if this and what if that? You know what nobody was thinking about in 1988 when they were arming the Mujahideen? Nobody was thinking, well, what if this group transforms into something called Al-Qaeda and become Islamic extremists that somehow learn how to target the World Trade Center in the United States, in the financial capital of the world? Nobody was thinking about that in 88.
Well, that would be the criticism. I guess that's what I'm trying to explore here, because I think the people who make that criticism never think of the counterfactual, what would happen if we didn't give those guys the guns. And I think that's totally legitimate. On the other hand, should the United States be running around the world giving guns to people who are desperate to use them?
Now you're getting into I think a very interesting question.
Yeah.
Because when the United States makes their decisions, who do you think the primary concern is with regard to blowback? It's the United States. How will this come back to bite us? And what is our assessment on being able to counter whatever that threat is, known or unknown, estimated, overestimated, or underestimated? What is our likelihood of being able to combat that threat? Versus what's not our problem, right? If we arm a bunch of Taliban to fight Russia in the 80s, and they go rogue and they transform into some kind of extremist group that harasses Russia or the UK or France. I mean, think about it. Throughout the 80s and 90s, it wasn't the US, it wasn't the United States that Al-Qaeda was targeting. It was Paris. It was London. It was Turkey, right?
I feel like it also included the United States.
Right. Or at least like U.S. assets, not in the United States. But yeah, I don't know the history of this, but the other thing is that's unfortunate because I'm supposed to know exactly what happened in the past.
But from an American point of view, when all you're focused on is American primacy, like, I know we're friends, guys, but this is your mess. But we'll come help you if you want to pay us, partner with us, or increase trade. That's how American government officials think. Because if we make a mess that somebody else has to clean up, guess what that means? It means you're too busy cleaning up the mess to compete with us as a superpower. And even better, if you're like the UAE or the Saudis or the Qataris, where you want our weapons to clean up the mess that we made that you now have to deal with. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a capitalist market in politics just as much as it is in economics.
And Andrew, how would the CIA change if someone like Trump came to power? Because Trump is very much about withdrawing a little bit, not intervening, letting countries as essentially operate in a far more free way than someone like the Democrats and Biden. Would that have a massive impact?
Wait, what?
Or not much at all?
Well, what I think is really interesting is that when we talk about a potential Trump presidency, we have precedent to work from.
I think
And
he
we can
was.
never mistake
I think he was. Wasn't he only talking about NATO specifically, saying that like, you know, if someone doesn't pay into NATO, he wouldn't defend them if they were attacked?
That's not even what they're talking about. They're talking about the intervention, like in using like the intelligence apparatus.
Okay.
So yeah, but we don't know because the CIA's job is to not tell you.
Yeah. True.
And it's not like we can take it's not like when Trump starts telling you what's going on in the CIA. You think those motherfuckers were telling him anything? I doubt it. Come on.
A campaign promise with a presidential reality. If Trump wins in 2024, there's a couple things we can very likely expect. We can expect a mass exodus from CIA. More people will leave. People have been leaving CIA in the highest numbers ever since his first presidency.
Why?
because they have ideological differences with the president. They don't want to gamble. Young people, when I say young, I mean young careerists under the age of 35, they don't want to gamble their 30-year government career on a White House that keeps flipping back and forth between extremes.
Extremes?
Not when you can go to Google or Amazon and have a perfectly good 20-year career, right, as a security expert or a threat assessor or who knows whatever else. So there's more attrition than ever before coming out of CIA, and not just CIA, but across the federal government. So we know that Trump will, if he becomes president, we know that if he disagrees with CIA, he'll just cut funding. He'll stop using them because he's already proven that he's happy to.
I don't think he can just cut funding. Wouldn't that be a congressional thing?
Yeah, I think Congress tends to. I mean, he could veto budgets, I suppose, but the problem with the CIA is I'm not sure that the budget for the CIA is really like it's probably a little murky. Like you know what I'm saying?
Like he could veto the budget, but then Congress could also override his veto.
Sure, but I'm not like I'm just not sure. I'm not confident that this is how the CIA gets their operating budget is by like asking Congress nicely to give them some money. I have a feeling they have other means by which to acquire capital.
Yeah.
To do what's known as private intelligence. Private intelligence was actually something that didn't really exist in the numbers that it exists in now prior to 2016. When Trump came into office and his own service, the CIA, spent all of its time and effort accusing him of Russian collusion, he was just like, all right, guys, you're not hired. I'm not going to work with you.
Did the CIA do that? I don't think the CIA did that.
No, I'm not sure. I think that was Rachel Maddow that spent all her time doing that, burned her career down.
To the extent that happened in the government, I believe that was entirely the FBI, wasn't it?
That I don't know. I should know because we know everything that happened in the past. But
yep. Gosh, we're really bad at the cone of what do you call it? The
cone of uncertainty, or the line of certainty part. We're bad at too, though.
Yeah, for us, it's more of a bow tie of uncertainty.
Right? It's a fucking orb of uncertainty.
It's just the whole thing is entirely uncertain. It's just a big square of uncertainty.
They do that because it's clearly not true, right?
I don't know that it's clearly not true. It's very difficult to defend. It's very difficult to prove. And intelligence is not an art of proving things. This is something that people don't understand. Intelligence is an art of assessing what is unknown. If something is known, it's a fact. It's not intelligence. Intelligence is always unknown. It is a series of probabilities based on things that you don't know.
That's a weird definition of intelligence.
Turn it over to someone like
right. I think it's because he just mentioned uncertainty, and the thing is, it's dealing. I think a lot of it is dealing with uncertainty when you do have some information, but you're trying to, and it's probably actually probably deals with all kinds of Somebody in chat's like known unknowns and unknown knowns and like that Donald Rumsfeld thing, right? That's probably a lot of that going on. Just like because there has to be, right? There has to be things you know, things you think you know, things you know that you don't know, and things that you don't know that you don't know. Just like fucking, just like any other like thing where you're trying to figure anything out, right? There's,
yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with this is the orb of uncertainty theory.
The all-encompassing orb of uncertainty.
The now space of uncertainty.
Like FBI, law enforcement, right? When you have a theory, it's intelligence. So I think what happened with CIA was you had 8 years of an Obama administration. You had very deeply rooted careerists who were progressive, who were liberal politically. And when Trump came into office, they didn't want to be part of some giant Russian operation. There's still a very
yes, the CIA known historically as a bunch of libs. What the fuck is he talking about?
Right. Yeah, it's just all leftists over at the CIA.
I mean, I imagine there are different people with different politics and stuff that work at the CIA for sure, but I think it probably much like the FBI and the cops, I bet it skews conservative.
Yep. Yeah, I think very few of them are who we would call leftists.
Right.
Probably the farthest left you go there is liberal.
Right. They're like Bernie Sanders. They think Bernie Sanders is Che Guevara, right?
Yeah.
War that goes on in the heads of people at CIA. We don't want to lose to the Russians. We don't want to lose to the Soviets. I mean, we want to defeat them at all costs. It's hard to break that mentality. And the people who are in charge are people who have had a 20, 25, 30-year career, not the people who are 5 years in, 7 years in. So if you had a 30-year career in 2016, that means that you started your career in the mid to late 80s.
Can you be progressive and liberal and work for the CIA? Aren't those two things mutually incompatible?
You would be shocked at.
Okay, now we agree with non-Oliver. What?
Well, no. I don't agree that. Like, I don't think that you can't. My statement
true.
was that the meta-analysis of the organization would be that it skews to the right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are liberals there, just they're few and far between.
And I think that when he said progressives, I'm just not sure. I mean, are you an analyst? Yeah, maybe you're just analyzing maybe you're doing signals. Oh, wait, that's not what they do. Shit. Oh my God.
Imagine like all the spies are just like super progressive.
They're like, well, we don't want to exploit this guy's homosexuality, so we got to send a honey trap that's a woman, right? Because it would be just wrong to like try to. Oh, the honey trap's not working, and we keep sending these beautiful women, and we just can't exploit this guy's homosexuality to try to get information.
It would be immoral of us
Right?
to do that.
Fuck out of here.
Is inside CIA. There are lots.
We're about 5 minutes from this guy telling us the CIA is too woke. I'm not kidding. We're literally 5 minutes from that, right?
I think he basically did say the CIA was woke,
Right.
and then all the wokies in the CIA left because of Trump.
The more this guy talks, the more I believe that he is currently an intelligence operative.
Right?
Because they hire so many young people, you have a lot of progressive ideas that come in at the start. Over time, those people, like most people, I would say, when you have real responsibility or when you have real money, you start to vary away from your liberal roots and you start to become more, at least fiscally conservative, even if you still do believe in like liberal causes. So what happens is either liberals start at CIA and then become more center, or center joins CIA and shifts more to the right, or people that are fairly right join CIA and just love life.
I really expected that to go somewhere else. So let's say, because the CIA have got a tough job at the moment. The world is becoming ever more unstable. There's wars happening, proxy wars, etc.
Wait, you need to have Steven Pinker on and explain that to him, because he'll tell you the world's the best that it's ever been.
So let's say what's happening with the Middle East. What would the CIA's job be at the moment with the conflict that is happening with Israel and Palestine?
I love this question because what CIA is doing, what we know they are doing from the headlines, they should not fucking be doing.
Wait, what do you? No, don't, no. Okay, we're gonna watch this ad because this is probably pretty cringe.
Yeah, what product should I not buy?
Francis,
What?
take your Raycons out. We need to get the audience back to the interview in 1 minute.
We do a fair bit.
Well, I'll just continue to not buy Raycons then.
I always lose my earbuds, so I just buy $15 earbuds.
Percent of your
And free shipping.
Yeah, like why would you want to buy like overpriced bad AirPod knockoffs?
I don't want to get into it, but if I want headphones, like I buy DJ headphones, right? Like otherwise, because
Yep.
Negotiator is for the United States negotiating between Hamas and Israel? CIA Director Burns. Why is a CIA director? Why is the head of the intelligence, the undercover covert intelligence wing of the United States, why is he negotiating with what we accuse of a terrorist group?
So hold on, the head of the CIA is not an undercover. He his name.
Yeah.
This is not
Well, he's saying he's the head of the agency that has the undercover agents.
Right.
And it's like, that's probably why he would be negotiating then.
Right,
because like he knows the things.
Right, or he would have he would potentially have leverage to suggest maybe he's like, maybe they know more about this than you think because of his position, right? Even if he doesn't, he could bluff, he could do all kind of things.
Yeah, I feel like he would be in the best position to do the negotiations, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe, depending on what you mean by the best position to do depend what outcome are you looking for, HK? You're looking for maximum body count? Well, then probably the CIA, yeah.
Yeah.
And Israel's political party. Why is he the interlocutor? That's not a role for an intelligence officer. That's a role for a diplomat. That's a role for a statesman.
I mean, one can be both.
Yeah, the head of the CIA, I would assume they function primarily as a diplomat, right? Because they're not fucking wiretapping you. Oh shit, that signals intelligence. Never mind. Fuck. The CIA doesn't do that anyway.
Yeah, and he personally wouldn't be like beating the secrets out of you.
Right. Like, yeah. Man, if you want to have leverage, I don't know. Maybe he's negotiating it because they think he's good to negotiate. I don't know. Maybe the whoever the Secretary of State is busy.
Intelligence official, somebody whose job is to lie and steal and cheat without getting caught. It shows two things. One, it shows how the United States views the conflict between Hamas and Israel. It shows that the United States does not view it through a diplomatic lens. Otherwise, they'd put a senior ambassador in there. They'd put a statesman in there. They'd put somebody from the president's cabinet in there. You know where the diplomats are spending their time? Saudi Arabia. Because the United States knows that it has very real diplomatic needs in the Middle East that it must maintain, and Israel's not one of those needs. It knows that what Israel is a fucking mess that they created, that they exacerbated early on, and that they need to clean up quietly. And they're hoping that CIA Director Burns will help make that happen.
And what do you think is the agenda? How does it get cleaned up, so to speak?
So there is no good outcome. There is no outcome that makes everybody happy. But CIA is not interested in making everybody happy. The CIA is interested in making American primacy prevail. So what America wants is a two-party solution, or a two-state solution. Two-state solution in what is currently known as the State of Israel. That's what the United States wants. They want a safe place for Palestinians. They want a safe place for Israelis. And then they want to be able to encourage relations between the Muslim and Arab world, the Israeli world. They want to increase trade. They want to have the ability to deploy fucking airplanes and warships into the Middle East, into friendly territory when we fight China. That's what they want.
We have places to do that. Like the American, we don't. It doesn't matter like whether or not these two political entities in this particular region get along. We have the United States has military bases all over the Middle East. Like what is he talking about?
I do think he's right that it is in our best interest for Israel and for the two-state solution is in our best interest, but not because we want to deploy warships there,
or not because we.
I think it's in our best interest so the region isn't destabilized.
Right. That's this guy. I don't know. This guy's actually a CIA agent. Fuck it. Like this guy's clearly there to deceive everyone. Like,
that's what the United States cares about. However they get there the fastest, that's what matters to them. The reason that you have diplomats meeting in Saudi Arabia and spies meeting in Israel is because what you need to have is
okay, the head of the CIA isn't a spy. He may have once been a spy, but he is not a spy. Like he's the person whose name he's like the head of the agency. He's a bureaucrat. He's not like what is he talking? He's not a spy.
Saudis and the Emiratis, two of the leading groups in the Middle East, accept Israel, which requires Israel to accept Palestine. That's the mess.
Interesting.
You think the United States is thinking 5 years beyond this point? They're thinking 2 years beyond this point.
But to me, that is, look, and I accept it, and as an analysis, it makes sense. I guess the question is, how much of this is a cynical thing as well, in that the UAE, Saudi Arabia have way more cash than Israel?
Holy shit, I agree with Don Oliver. He's like, yeah, our diplomatic interests are served better in Dubai and fucking and the Saudi like yes, the money, the oil and the money. Yeah. But like, does he think there's no diplomat? Like, does he think that just because the head of the CIA is the main negotiator that there's no other diplomats doing any? Like, what the fuck? He just went there by himself? Get the fuck out of here. Nobody from the Department of State's talking to anybody, actually. Got the head of the CIA on it. That's fucking bug fuck. That is there's no way that's true.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying when you ask how much of it is cynical, right?
Yeah.
It's not cynical if it's economic. Cynical means that there's no real rational foundation for it.
Wait, what? No, that's not true either.
That there's real oil in both the UAE and Saudi Arabia. That's a very real issue. The other thing to keep in mind is the United States is always trying to counter the Iranian threat. Mm-hmm. Well, inside the Middle East, Iran's primary enemy in the sphere of influence is Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia always wants to make sure it contains the Iranian threat as well. So you have Iran regionally as a point of collaboration for the United States and for Saudi Arabia and for UAE on top of that. But then you have this Palestinian issue, which is clearly a point of contention and a long time point of contention. And as long as Hamas and Israel continue to be in conflict, more specifically, as long as Israel continues to kill Palestinians, that's the real problem. Nobody has a problem with Israel fighting Hamas. What they have a problem with is Israel killing Palestinians in the name of fighting Hamas. So as long as that situation continues, you have a UN that's turning against Israel. You have the question of the International Criminal Court pressing charges on Israel. You have the United States, who used to back Israel and is now backing away from Israel. The United States needs Israel.
I mean, very slowly.
Top three wealthiest,
and mostly via rhetoric.
Yeah,
in the Asian subcontinent.
Unless he means like the American public, because public opinion about this has changed dramatically.
Yeah, the public for sure is like fully backed away. But it's taking a while for our government to catch up with us.
In buying power for our weapon systems, our technology, our security interests, right? There's lots of reasons why the United States wants and needs to continue being partnered with Israel, but to do so in a way that distances them.
Let me ask you what is a horrible question, but if we're talking about people whose job it is to lie and steal and do all of that for a living and to do it well, and it's purely about the interests of the United States, why doesn't the United States just let Israel destroy Gaza completely and end this conflict forever?
There's a few reasons for that, right? Reason number one is...
By the way, just for people watching, I'm not advocating for
course.
that. But if you're thinking with a cynical hat on, that would be an approach that...
I was a little worried there for a second that he was advocating for that.
I don't think that's a cynical hat. What we have a process at CIA called the analysis of competing hypotheses, ACH, the analysis of competing hypotheses. When you create competing hypotheses, you basically start at the extremes. So there are two extremes here. Extreme number one, just let Israel just kill everyone, destroy everything, start over from a clean slate. However Netanyahu plays this thing out in his brain when he's, in his bathtub at night. That's one option. The other option is cut off all support to Israel, sweep in to support the Palestinians, and bring every Muslim country along with you, right?
Wait, those are those are two extreme positions, but those aren't the two options. Those aren't what the fuck is he? Those aren't the two options.
Yeah, I think he's about to say that like there exist things in between, but even that like. Those are extremes on like multiple positions too. Because like you could stop funding Israel entirely. That doesn't mean you have to start funding Palestine.
Right. You could. Yeah. There's this this guy probably got fired for being a dumb spy.
Those are valid options on a spectrum of extremes. So you can't just rule them out. But when it comes to why we can't do that, why the United States can't maintain its role as the world's superpower by letting that happen, we need the Middle East. The United States needs the Middle East. They need the oil from the Middle East. They need the wealth from the Middle East. The Middle East has become a financial hub that competes with all the financial centers in the United States. So to ostracize Dubai and Riyadh and Abu Dhabi is unacceptable. Qatar, Bahrain, like the Khaliji countries control so much wealth and so much oil flow. We would be shooting ourselves in the foot like we did back in the 70s if we try to ostracize or minimize their priorities, their issues. And we know that Palestine is one of their top priorities. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, all of them. So we can't just let Israel do whatever Israel wants to do, because to do that would cost us Jordan, which is a huge strategic partner, Muslim country in the region, Saudi Arabia and UAE.
So how does this end?
Unfortunately, I think the way that this ends is twofold. So first, Netanyahu is not going to get what he wants. He's not going to push out Hamas. He's not going to push out the Palestinians. Egypt is not going to accept that. Jordan is not going to accept that. There will be some sort of brokered ceasefire, hopefully soon. There will be a long-term truce that's created, and then there will continue to be a two-state solution. No matter how much politicians in Israel don't want that, that's what's going to happen. That's what has to happen. Through the eyes of everything that is democratic, that's what must happen. Where I'm hoping it will go is that countries in the West and countries in the Gulf will realize that the only way to keep this kind of violence from continuing is to force Palestine and Israel to have some sort of economic dependence on each other. So whether that means you take the entire state of Israel and literally cut it in half instead of making it this weird like hodgepodge of this part belongs to Palestine and this part, like, even if you talk to an Israeli, none of it belongs to Palestine, but they're allowed to live here and they're allowed to live here and not in between. I can see them literally cutting the entire state in half.
Wait, what? No,
forcing.
I can't see. That's the least likely outcome.
Yeah. I would say that would lead to more problems than probably any other solution.
That is a less likely outcome than them just knocking down the fences and learning to live together as neighbors and becoming one fucking country, right? Like that is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The only less likely outcome than that is just picking the whole thing up and putting it all in the middle of Wyoming, right? Like that would be the lead. That would be less likely than cutting. Like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like.
And they have to have some sort of economic cooperation, because you need the economics so that the Palestinians can become self-sufficient. You've heard Biden talk about the right to self-determination. For both the Israelis and the Palestinians, you can't have self-determination if you can't determine your own future. And a big part of determining your own future is having control of your own economy, which the Palestinians have never had.
But the problem is, Andrew, is we're kind of looking at it through this lens of, economics and whatever else. And for the vast majority of governments, I would say that makes sense. But Hamas are extremists. They do not want the state of Israel existing. They're rabidly anti-Semitic. So how can you negotiate with that type of government who are Islamic fundamentalists?
I would argue that part of what you're...
I mean, how can you negotiate with the government of Israel who wants the same thing but for Palestinians?
That part of what you're repeating right now is actually rhetoric and not fact, right? So there is a fundamentalist element to Hamas, but Hamas is also the legitimate elected government in what was Gaza, and even now in the West Bank, you see an increasing rise of support for Hamas. Because if you just look at the news, October 8th, nobody trusted the numbers that were coming out of Gaza, because they said that, tens of thousands of people were dying, but this was reported by Hamas, which is the currently recognized government of whatever, right? They were always pulling out the idea that Hamas was not a reliable source because it was potentially a terrorist group. Now, you don't see any kind of verbiage like that. Now you literally see Gaza officials say this, Gaza officials say that. Well, the fucking Gaza officials are the same Gaza officials they were on October 8th.
Well, except the ones that are dead.
So what's changed? What's changed is the rhetoric from the West. And now after seeing that, well, maybe Palestinians and Hamas as a ruling body, maybe they actually do have support on the ground. And oh, by the way, Israel has.
One of the issues is that Hamas was elected in 2006 when the majority of the population of Gaza was not even born yet.
Right, and it's it's hard to conduct an election under occupation. So I would imagine that that election in 2006 was probably some kind of shit show, and then there might be reasons that there haven't been new elections. There might be reasons that it's politically convenient, maybe, for the hardliners in the Israeli government to have Hamas continue to be the governing entity for Gaza, right? Because if a more moderate party were to win out in an election, now they wouldn't have such a fucking the boogeyman goes away in some ways. So this is super complicated.
Whether or not they support Netanyahu and what he's doing in Palestine. So you've got a huge shift in public opinion on both the Palestinian and the Israeli side. So being able to just jump in and say, well, Hamas is a extremist organization isn't 100% accurate. They still have legitimate grounds to be there because they have been policing, enforcing, maintaining health, safety, and the movement of humanitarian goods.
I guess my pushback to that would be just because a government is legitimate does not mean it's not extremist. So, for example, in Venezuela, they elected Hugo Chavez, and I think most people, apart from the nutso people on the left, would agree that Chavez was an extreme figure and he had extreme policies.
Again, it's in the eyes of the beholder, right? So what would you call China being ruled by the CCP? Are they extremist in their commitment to communism? What would you call the United States in our commitment to capitalism?
Okay, I like that.
We, the United States, we are deemed a terrorist organization by the Iranians because of our extreme fundamentalism, right? What would you call a state where there is no division between church and state? Because that's Israel. Nobody calls that an extremist state. So it's all in the eyes of the beholder and how you define that. Now here in the West, that
was actually well put. I like that.
Yeah. Maybe this guy would have been a good diplomat.
Maybe.
We call everything terrorism. We call it terrorism because inside the United States, once you label something as a terrorist organization, all the rules and all the oversight are much they're relieved, they're reduced. So now it's faster to send troops, it's faster to make money go that direction, it's faster to cut off and seize assets. Like you can do anything once you call somebody a terrorist organization. And that's why you see this back and forth, even in legislation about what they call a terrorist organization versus a functioning terrorist group versus et cetera, et cetera.
So that being the case, what do we do with Iran? Because Iran seems to be...
I'd just leave them alone, maybe. I don't know. Fucking, like, what the fuck? What do you mean, what do you do with Iran, non-Oliver? We bomb them? I mean, we work so well every time we've been doing that in the Middle East for the last 25 years. Go ahead, just bomb them, fuck it. What do you mean, what do you do about Iran? You have to negotiate with them when you have to negotiate. Well, like, what the fuck is he talking about? You have to deal with them as a nation state. That's it.
Yep.
My God.
Major problem in this area. You have, I think it's fair to say, an extremist government who have been funding terrorist groups. So what do you do? Do you let them continue to fund them? Do you apply political pressure? Do you introduce sanctions? What do you do?
Don Oliver, there already are sanctions in place against Iran.
With Iran?
The question is so much bigger than Iran. So I'm going to answer your question with a second question, right? Where did Iran develop this methodology? The methodology of funding Hezbollah, funding Hamas, right? Funding insurgent groups in Iraq, while simultaneously also making itself indispensable in the Middle East, because Iran is the breadbasket of the Middle East. Mm-hmm. You sit in UAE, you sit in Saudi Arabia, the headlines say, Iran is evil, Iran is evil, Iran is evil. The produce shelves all say, grown in Iran. The food that feeds Saudi Arabia comes from Iran. The food that feeds UAE comes from Iran. So if you want to talk about complexity, how do you label somebody a villain when they are the ones providing your food? It's like the American Civil War. All the industry happened in the north, all the agriculture came from the south. So I say that because
well, wait a minute. You left something out, sir. You left something out about the American Civil War. You left out a part. I think that. How did they grow all the food in the, not all of it, but how was a non-insignificant amount of the agriculture performed? And what kind of labor, for example, was being used?
I don't think he left that out for like as a motivated reason. I think he was just trying to make a point, and the point was ill put.
Right.
Modeling a methodology.
But like you could just say that now, that like the that like a lot of states are bitching about California, but where's all their food from? You know, you could like make a modern analogy, right? Oh, we hate the people in California, like with look at this strawberry. Well, where the fuck do you think the strawberry came from?
Yep.
Proxy wars. They're using revenue to fund extremist guerrilla groups to execute their will in foreign countries. They learned that from us. That's exactly how the United States executed operations all through the 50s, 60s, and 70s. That's still how we execute operations. Oh, by the way, China's doing the same thing. Russia's doing the same thing. Saudi's doing the same thing. That is the state of the world right now, is proxy conflict. It's what happened in Libya. It's what happened in Syria. It's still happening in Yemen. It's what's happening in Ukraine. And you can see how the same elements are present right now in the conflict between Hamas and Israel.
So this is what I was going to ask you, because I'm not an expert on these things, but just as an outside observer, it feels to me like we're at a point when the West has spent so much time signaling weakness and division and distraction and all of this stuff that people can see with their own eyes, especially foreign people to whom, 53 genders isn't a thing that they take for granted. They go like, what the fuck?
Wait, what?
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, of course he had to bring that up. He couldn't not bring that up.
Yep.
And when I see Russia feeling more confident to expand and to fight that conflict, when I see Iran more empowered to do things in the Middle East, when I see China talking more aggressively about Taiwan, I see the king of the hill is weakened, everybody senses it, and now they're all coming for us. Is that a fair analysis?
I don't think it's an unfair analysis. I do think it's a bit of an oversimplification.
Yeah, sure.
Because when we say king on the hill, like generally what we're talking about, or what people might imagine, is the president of the United States, which isn't necessarily how I think we should look at this situation.
I meant the United States.
I agree with that. So the United States is
and its allies.
the leader of the free world. At least that's what we've been known as for however many decades. The problem that we're really seeing here is that the West has been introducing concepts for the last few decades that we have all accepted and labeled as democratic ideals, as the path to a functioning, healthy society, something that makes us strong by democratizing as much as possible. Right? Let's have more people who vote and more candidates to vote for and more frequent elections. And that's democracy.
This guy, you know what's good about this too, is that this guy's not going down that fucking path with these people, right? This is pretty. I don't know if he's an op or not. I don't know, but he's not taking this particular bait, right? He's not.
Yeah, I don't know where he's going with this. It doesn't sound like he's, falling for their trap.
Right, maybe he didn't want to do this. Maybe the fact that he currently is an op is the CIA is like, you can go on all these anti-woke shows, but just don't go down this path with these people.
To be successful. The truth is, democracy in the American terms is an experiment. It's only a few hundred years old. It's never been proven out. You know what's lasted for thousands of years? Authoritarianism, right? I mean, look at the United Kingdom has proven that monarchy can last for centuries. The United States is still...
I mean, they have a monarchy, but the monarchy doesn't rule.
It's like a state-sponsored celebrity, right? That's all.
Yeah. I mean, they're the parliament.
Right. They have
does the ruling.
Yeah. They don't have they don't. Yeah. It's state-sponsored celebrity.
Yeah.
Right. We are still very much in our middle school years, and middle school wasn't very much fun for me. I don't know what they call it. I don't know what they call it in Europe.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that what we're seeing is that the United States and this great democracy, this great democratic experiment, hasn't evolved in the last 30 or 40 years. If anything, what it's done is it's rooted itself in idealism that isn't actually healthy. And now authoritarian regimes are developing and evolving faster, growing faster. You see more and more countries than ever before opting for authoritarian rulers, strongman rulers, or ultra-nationalist rulers. Look at Germany, look at Italy, look at what President Macron.
Well, but I mean, that's Germany. Are you talking about like last century? Because Germany, they have a pretty strong aversion to that kind of thing. I mean, they have a far right party now that's in some ways ascendant, but they're no. I mean, he's talking about like fucking the 20s and 30s, like after World War One. And interesting, he's not bringing up Viktor Orban. That's weird.
In France, just announced this week that the Europe we know could die. It could go away.
We have to be clear about the fact that our Europe today is mortal. It could die.
Wait, no, that's not. It is going away. He's like he's saying that the like Europe could, as we know it, might no longer. Like he's not saying that it is. He's saying it could. There's a pretty big distinction.
Just like every country isn't immortal.
It could
or every
die. It could
go
go
away.
away.
Group of countries, every organization.
Democratic continent where multiple states agree to work together could go away in favor of multi-centered nationalist nations, which is exactly what Trump represents, exactly what Netanyahu represents, and that's that's what the primary threat is in France to win the elections this year in France.
I guess what I'm getting at is the broad, I know you said it's an oversimplification, I'm sure that's true. The broader sense of the West is weakened one way or another for whatever reason, and other people smell that and they're using that to their own advantage, as they should. Is that what's happening?
I would say, I hesitate to use the words weak because I don't want to say that the West weakened. What I want to say is that the West hasn't evolved, right? It's the difference between pitting a 22-year-old athlete against a 42-year-old athlete, right? The 22-year-old athlete heals faster, has more modern training alternatives, has
I don't know what he means by this.
Better gyms with better coaches.
Like, where exactly is he going with this?
Also, what sport is the athlete engaged in? Is it a team sport? Because then maybe your 42-year-old athlete is there not necessarily because of their athleticism, but because of their experience and ability to work well with the team, right? Like,
yeah, true.
Like, this is weird. Like, do they mean sprinters? Well, sure, but maybe it's hockey. Maybe that 42-year-old guy will just knock a motherfucker down. Who good at that shit.
Yeah, like I feel like this is a bad analogy, and also I don't know what he's trying to get at. Like, what does he mean that like America is not evolving? Like American democracy is not evolving?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We're getting pretty close. We're basically gonna end the pod right here, where they've put their segment mark, I suppose. But we may watch the rest of this during the post game because I'm kind of fascinated by this.
With all of optimized modern society for the last 8 years, the 42-year-old athlete has had the same access to those tools, but is dealing with a 42-year-old body. And all the life changes, the hormone changes that come at 42, the life changes, the responsibilities, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay,
So
again, this analogy makes no fucking sense. In this analogy, what are the hormone changes? What is that analogous to
Like,
in the United States?
Who even is the 22-year-old and who's the 42-year-old in this?
Yo, what the fuck is he talking about?
Like, that's what
this analogy went off the rails.
You would think about pitting a 42-year-old against a 22-year-old and betting on one or the other to win or lose in a foot race.
Oh, well, now you're talking about sprinting, probably the 22-year-old, but it depends.
Yeah, and again, like not a country.
Instead of finding a way to constantly reinvent ourselves and bring up our 22-year-old athletes, which is why we're looking at two presidential candidates who are both fucking ancient. How does that happen? Right?
Well, that's a good thing that their job isn't to sprint.
How many people in our House
But I think Joe Biden would win the foot race.
in our Senate and in our
Yeah, I think he would. I think Joe Biden would win any kind of race.
4 or 5,
Maybe not a
6
race to the
people?
bottom.
Like, we are not investing in our future. We are, and have always been as the United States, a revolutionary group.
Wait, what?
We still literally pat ourselves on the back for winning independence from you fuckers. Right?
All right, well, that's as good a place as any to end the podcast. Yeah, I don't know, like, because there, you can see the segment marker right there. Well, now you can't on the screen, but you can see the segment marker there. So they're going to move on to something else, and I'm not even sure. I guess he's saying the USA is a 42-year-old athlete, I think. But then who's
and he was saying that, like, authoritarianisms are the 22-year-old athletes. What the fuck does that mean?
But then he was saying that those regimes have been around for thousands of years. The whole thing just falls apart when you try to think about it. So
yeah,
I do want to kind of get back to the like, one, I like that he didn't take the bait on the, well, we're too woke. He was just like pretended they didn't say that, essentially, right? He pretended they said nothing about the 915 genders or whatever it was. And that's good. And I just don't know, like, I want to get back to like, maybe as we close out the podcast here, I want to get back to like just the whole premise of this conversation. Like, was this guy really a CIA agent?
I think either he was not a CIA agent or he currently is one, like we've been saying, and is just like out here spreading misinformation on purpose. Right.
And if the CIA had an interest in doing that, you would send him to places like the Tom Bilyeu Show, Iced Coffee Hour, fucking Constantine and Non Oliver, that Valuetainment guy. They're like, no, you can't go on Dave Rubin. That's just unfair. You just can't do it. I bet he's probably never going on Dave Rubin's show, right? Because then they'd have to tell him that Dave Rubin is also an intelligence operative.
Well, wouldn't he know? He knows all plus 1,000 plus of them, right?
Right. They're like, all right.
That was the wildest statement. Just saying we have like, and now we have 1,000 plus secret agents, undercover agents. Like, how the fuck would you know? First of all,
right? Especially,
like, second of all, why would you say that? Like, if you did know that and you were like talking about that publicly, absolutely, they'd probably like,
bye.
You'd find an open window near you.
Right. If you were Russian, your airplane would fall out the window.
Yeah.
Like, Andrew who? Yeah, I don't know. This is a good grift. But maybe if we, like, his analysis was pretty good on some stuff, but I think a lot of it was also kind of obvious. Like, I don't think this is like, you wouldn't have to have like a background in intelligence or even in diplomacy to for the analysis that he was giving.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm torn. This guy's either on the grift or he's on the payroll.
I think he's just a grifter. That's like, I could be wrong, but I'm leaning towards he's just a grifter
with some takes that are like not crazy, right?
Yeah, like he found a grift that like is like no one, it's like non-falsifiable, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like no one can prove that what he's saying isn't true.
Right. It's like the person who claims that they had cancer and cured it with a magic bean. Well, you can't really check their medical records. It's the same. Yep. It's the same general idea, right? It's this set of non-falsifiable and non-verifiable claims that give you some sort of authority on a subject that you otherwise might not have any authority on.
Yep. Like the people who know won't tell you, and the people who will tell you don't know.
Oh man. Yeah, I think we're gonna probably watch the rest of this, because again, if you were an intelligence operative and you were gonna try to play somebody in the media to like spread disinformation, I would have gone to these people first. Actually, I'm surprised it took them so long to get to these two. You want to read the show out, HK?
All right. Thank you for tuning into the Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do the show every Wednesday live on twitch.tv/Echoplex Media at 7 p.m. Pacific. If you'd like to check us out, you can check this show out, as well as all our other shows at echoplexmedia.com. And if you'd like to support us, you can do that at patreon.com/echoplex or eplex.store, where you can buy our merch. If you're hanging out live, check us out after the song we're about to play for Red Light, where we change the color of the lights and the contents of the drinks, and we sometimes get a little spicy in the chat, and we have a grand old time. So thanks again for tuning in, and this is Boomers by Periscope.